As always, it is great to have Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News with us every week here on Coast to Coast. Mike, good to see you as always, my man. And listen, it's that time in the summer, right? We've got our big soccer tournaments going on. It's a lot of fun. You've got the Euros, we've got the Copa. Every 2 years we get big ones. We'll get the World Cup in the United States a few years from that. So let's do with the USA here. They started the other night against Bolivia, 2-0 win. Pulisic scores 3 minutes into the game, a rousing start. They're going to play Panama on Thursday night. What did you think of the first game for Berhalter and the crew to start the Copa?
Well, I thought there was a lot of great things in that game. And a game that goes 90 minutes is not going to be all perfect. And Chris Richards giving the ball away on multiple occasions in dangerous positions is certainly something. It's one of those things where you say, well, if they were playing a better team, that would be really problematic. But does Chris Richards give it away like that against a better team? Well, he wasn't one of the ones that was responsible for the gaffes against Colombia, and he didn't do it regularly against Brazil. So maybe it was just a question of attention to detail. Once you were up 2-0, maybe cruising a little bit. He's got to play better than that, certainly. But I'm not sure I'm ready to panic on that. They still are trying to find out what their best defensive pairing is. But I don't think that I'd base it on how many giveaways he had against Bolivia. In attack, they were terrific, except when it got to the finish line. They did not score at the level that they could have. Not that they needed to. I mean, they won 2-0, but that they could have. And in tournaments like this, you see teams continue to attack and continue to try to score because there are opportunities that might be available to you later in the tournament. You may get the group win based on goal differential or goals scored, and that's where they could have really created an advantage for themselves against Bolivia and did not.
Mike, great column the other day about Pulisic. In fact, I think the headline for everyone will say it the best. Isn't just the United States men's team's most accomplished player, he's the best there's ever been for the United States. How about that, Mike? Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, the accomplished thing is easy. I mean, he won the Champions League with Chelsea, and he wasn't just a guy on the bench or just a guy out there filling a position. He scored probably the biggest goal in the entire tournament for Chelsea, the opener against Real Madrid on the road. That set that tone for that particular series, as well as he created. It was Mason Mount that finished the goal, but there's no goal without third goal without him creating it to clinch everything in the second game of that series. So he was an essential player in Chelsea winning Champions League. He then goes and makes basically what we would call all league in Serie A this year with AC Milan. So we haven't had an American player do that before. So accomplished is easy. But in terms of best or greatest, that's where I think that you start to look at the fact that he has scored 30 goals in 69 games, I believe is the number. It took Landon Donovan, I believe, 87 games to hit that figure. If it hadn't been for the pandemic and the U.S. had played a full schedule in 2020 instead of just 3 games, maybe he's already on 40 or 45. He really missed a lot of opportunities there in 2020, as well as the opportunities he missed in 2018 when they didn't qualify for the World Cup. No fault to him when he was their best player in the latter stages of that qualifying campaign.
Yeah, I think that people like Landon Donovan comes to their mind, Mike, right? Because there's so many national stage moments, right? You know, there's so many things you can point to with Landon Donovan throughout his career that he did with the national team. But I got news for everybody, and I know you're going to agree with me. Pulisic's got more to come, more big ones, like the one you saw against Iran. There's going to be moments for him, maybe even 2 years from now when it's here in the United States. He's going to get more national moments, and those will blow past Donovan at some point.
Yeah, I think that you're looking at these next couple of weeks are an opportunity in Copa America. And then, of course, I think more so than that is 2026 when the tournament will be here in the United States. They will be based primarily on the West Coast for the early stages of the tournament. They'll play a couple of games in L.A. and one in Seattle in the group stage. And I think it's a real opportunity for Americans to see what Christian is capable of. early in his career, the one problem he had that Landon never had a great problem with was staying healthy. And that's probably the biggest item in Landon's advantage is that health factor. Landon was almost always there. And for a while, Christian had trouble being there. Lately, that's not been the case. He's really stayed together. He played the full year for Milan. He's played just about every USMNT game in the last year or so. So that's good to see.
Mike, let's get into the NBA draft. Of course, round 1 tomorrow night. They've actually split it now. So you have round 1 on Wednesday night, round 2 on Thursday. We needed to do that, Mike. We got to get like the NFL, split the draft up into a couple of days. This is a heavy European player draft, especially at the top. There's going to be a lot of guys taken early that none of us have ever seen before. But, Mike, we have seen the talent that is coming out of the college ranks. I saw your rankings of your top 15 college players that are going to be in the draft. Why don't you let everybody know, number 1 for Mike DeCourcy of the college players?
Well, first of all, Mike, I must say that I'm really impressed that you called it talent. That was very generous of you to call it talent. I'm being a little facetious here, but this is not a great draft for the NBA, and it's a bit daunting, damning for American men's basketball. Maybe it's a one-off. Maybe it's just this is how it's going to go, and there will probably be some good players that are taken tomorrow night that maybe people aren't excited about now that eventually work themselves into great players. I mean, heck, nobody really thought Nikola Jokic was going to be a good player, let alone the best player in the league. So it can happen. But my number 1 out of the colleges, I only rated the colleges. I was only asked to rate the colleges. So I didn't watch the tape on the internationals that I have in past drafts. But the colleges, Steph Castle was my number 1 player. I really like Steph. I think he's terrific. I think he's got a chance to be a really good player. And I don't have any problem seeing him being a high rotation player for a good NBA team fairly soon. Donovan Clingan, there's a reason UConn won the national championship back-to-back. Donovan Clingan was my number 2. And then my number 3 is a guy that I don't think enough people are talking about, Devin Carter from Providence. I'm starting to see him pop up into top 10s, which excites me because he's a player that I thought was underrated as a collegian. And now I'm seeing him. I had seen him being totally underrated as a draft prospect, but maybe when they actually make the selections, he won't be.
One guy that I've seen getting higher and higher, I've looked at a few mocks this morning that now have, first of all, I've seen some that have Clingan going first, which I think would be a very big surprise if he was able to jump both of the French guys. But Reed Shepard, I've seen as high as 2 or 3 now as well, Mike. What do you think of him?
You know, I have concerns about Reed Shepard. Size, ability to maneuver. If he's going to be a point guard, he's got to be a better ball handler than he is. If he's going to be a wing, doesn't he have to be a little bit bigger than about 6'2.5", 6'3"? He's a phenomenal shooter. I mean, he's as good a shooter as has coming out of college basketball and into the NBA in a long time. He is a great open shooter, but I'm not sure that I spend a top 5 pick on that. Defensively, he was really a problem. He was very disruptive. I mean, he could take the ball off you with anybody that there is, at least in college. He was phenomenal at that, but he was often out of position, made a lot of mental mistakes. So I have my concerns about him as a top 5 pick. As a top 12 pick, where you know you're going to get his 50% shooting, I could see that.
Mike, really fast, 10 seconds, 2 yes or no's. Does Edey go in the top 10? Does Bronny go in the first round?
No and no, but I think Edey will come soon after that.